So anybody in here already working? Not working? Ever had a job, regular, part-time job, summer job, nothing like that? Where'd you work?
I work in
All right, so you have some understanding of what is expected. Finding a career is not an easy thing to do. I mean, everybody thinks, oh, you're 18, you should know what you're going to major in, you should have a plan, you should be ready to roll, and not usually the kind of thing that most people can figure out early on. So I got to give you a few ideas, some things you can think about while you're trying to figure out how to choose a career. It's a tough decision. It's a big decision. It's not, however, a decision that you are locking yourself into for the next 50 years because things change. Life happens, situations change. You can get into something that you think is going to be great and it's not. Or you can get into something that you think is going to be great and it actually leads to other things that you never even thought about. So there's all kinds of options there, all kinds of opportunities. When you're choosing a career, the big thing is what is best for you. Because some people might try to advise you on you should do this or you should think about this. But really it comes down to what you are interested in, what you think you can do. Because it's not easy sometimes to figure those things out. First thing I always say is preparation is critical. Do research. If you're writing a research paper, you've got to look things up, right? Unless it's a research paper about something you already know everything about, which what's the point? Most of the time when you're doing a research project, it's something you don't know. So preparation is very important. And think about you. Think about yourself because you know you better than anybody else. What is your personality? What skills do you already have? Interest. What do you like to do? And values. How do you feel about certain things? Because that can play a big part in a career that you choose. And probably most important, strengths and weaknesses. I wanted to be an astronaut when I was 10 until I found out you got to be really good at math and science. Two very big negatives for me, serious weaknesses. Not going to make the astronaut training program. I'm okay with that right now. But you got to know what your strengths are. You got to know what your weaknesses are because if you do, it gives you a better inclination and understanding about how you need to choose a career. And this is what should make you feel a little bit better. More than half of students change their major at some point during college. And some people walk into college straight out of high school and they have no idea what they're going to do. I have no idea. That's okay too, because we want you to explore multiple things. We want you to consider possibilities. And we want you to take classes that are going to give you, expose you to different things, different math and science and English and history, so you can get a better idea of what you're interested in. And then to make you feel even a little bit more comfortable, the average graduate will change their career several times. Depends on who you ask. Some people say it's 7 times. We'll say it's 4 times. It's 10. It doesn't matter. The point is, people do change their careers. It happens all the time. Or you get into a career and it moves you somewhere else that you had never anticipated. That happens sometimes too. So your strengths. Are you good at math? Are you good at science? Are you good at reading? Are you good at writing? What are your skills as it pertains to academics? Do you have critical thinking? Do you like to problem solve, to troubleshoot? Or do you like to have an idea of what's going on? The bottom line is you got to think about what you're good at. You have to have in your mind what you're going to be successful at. Again, back to my example. Astronaut training not going to happen because math and science are subjects I am not strong in. And I know that. So I didn't try to push myself in that respect because I knew it wasn't going to happen. But that doesn't change the fact that I knew that better than anybody else. And your people skills. Do you like to negotiate? Do you like to converse? Do you like to deal with other people? Or do you like to be kind of left alone, to do things yourself? Do you find yourself in leadership positions regularly and you like that? Or are you more of a team player and you want to be kind of like taking orders and doing what is required in a particular job? You know that better than anybody else. Always recommend that you don't laser in on one thing. Keep your options open. Because you never know where you might end up. And if you keep your options open, if you allow yourself to accept other possibilities of careers, you might be surprised at what comes along. Research is critical. And guys, it has never been easier to research careers. You can keyword search in Google for a start on that if you want to, and find everything that you could possibly want to know about a certain career. What I think is better, because you're going to find thousands of websites that tell you thousands of different things. What I think is almost always better is to job shadow or to get into an internship. Find someone that is doing what you think you want to do and talk to them, because they will tell you better than anybody else. I'm interested in being a dentist. When you're in the dentist chair, before they make it impossible to talk about that with the dentist. If you want to be into retail, talk to somebody that is already in retail. If you're interested in computer programming, talk to a computer programmer. These are people that are doing the job that you want to do. They will give you way better experience, knowledge than you could ever get from any other source. Always recommend that if it's possible. It's not always possible, but if you can. Social media is big. I know it's bigger than that. Come on in. Social media is a lot bigger than most people probably realize when it comes to finding jobs. LinkedIn is probably one of the better known ones, but there are hundreds of them out there. Later sessions we'll talk about how you can use some of these things to market yourself, up to and including Twitter and Facebook. Believe it or not, there are people that are getting jobs from Twitter and Facebook. It's not easy, but it can be done. And it takes a little creativity, but I get ahead of myself. Talents and abilities. What are your skills? If you are very skilled at something that will lead to a career you're interested in, that's good. Sometimes you've got to develop those skills. And there's nothing wrong with that. That happens for a lot of people. But you need to think about what your abilities are, what your talents are, and what skills you are really able to excel in. These are all important things to consider. But always keep your options open. Now, at some point, you do have to make a decision. I mean, you can't be 45 and think, well, it's my 23rd year of college. I probably need to make up my mind here. You need to make a decision at some point. But keep your options open for the first year or so till you can decide what you want to do. I think most people have a pretty good idea of what they want to do. It's just a matter of getting the information to figure out if that's exactly where you want to go. All right, so what you need to look for. Your major career is a big deal. If you're going to be interested in being a doctor, then you need to take courses that steer you towards that. So keep in mind what your major career field target is. Your preferred type of work is probably a pretty important one too. Inside or outside? I think I even have that one later on. Do you want to be a landscape person or do you want to be an office person? And that's a big difference. If you like being outside in the elements, it's cold, it's hot, the sun, the rain, then there are careers that gravitate towards that. If you don't like those things, you probably should avoid a career that will put you in those positions. Your income requirements. If you're looking to buy a $500,000 house and have 20 cars, you've got to keep in mind that you're going to need a certain level of income to do that. There's entry-level jobs. Every career has an entry level, and there's a number for that. Some careers, the entry-level income is higher than 30-year incomes for other professions. It just depends on what you're going to choose. You also have to understand that sometimes that income, higher income, comes with significantly higher responsibilities, greater educational requirements, and maybe a higher level of stress. It just depends. Geography. Oh, really? Geography? Yeah, where do you want to live? I mean, some jobs are location specific. And there may be things that you're interested in and you want to live in this area that just really don't exist in terms of profession. It just depends on where you intend to be. How much you're going to interact with other people. If you like customer service, if you like answering the phone, if you like talking to people and helping people with their problems, that's a skill. If you don't want to talk to people, then you need to keep that in mind because some jobs will require a high level of interaction with other people. Not just with other employees, but with the public at large. I use education as an example because teaching is a tough field to be in when you've got 35 students in your classroom and you are the one that's having to deal with the 35 students. That's a pretty high level of interaction, 1 to 35. You've got to be prepared for that. Other jobs, not a very high level of interaction. But it depends on what you're good at, what you want to do. The industry itself. Some industries will require you to have certain skills before they'll even look at you. And you've got to be aware of what those skills are and certifications. Stress level is huge. If you plan on a career, say, the healthcare field, there are significant levels of stress there. You're dealing with people's individual health. There can be situations where they're not doing too well, and it's going to be your responsibility to fix that. It can be stressful. Some jobs, not so much stress. And depending on how you deal with that, that's going to play into whether or not you want to do that. Special needs, again, if the business requires certain things from you, and if you have certain things that you expect, you've got to keep those in mind. Continuing on this list, independence. If you like to work by yourself, you want somebody to say, look, I need you to do this, go. And you're left alone to do that. That's a skill set. If you require someone to say, I need you to do this, I need you to follow these steps, I want you to do this, here's your first deadline, you talk to me after your first deadline, we'll get the second deadline, that's a different skill. And that's a different personality trait. You know better than anybody else if you're able to be independent or require some more management. Balance between creative and conventional type tasks. Well, print jobs, graphic arts, require you to make stuff up. An office job where you're data entry or you're keeping up with information, not so much requirement that you make things up. In fact, if you do that, that might be illegal. You got to stay with certain things. You need to know whether you can be the creative side or the conventional side. Physical requirements. Some jobs are physically demanding. They're emotionally and mentally demanding. Other jobs are not. I'm going to go back to healthcare because it's an easy example. If you're going to be a paramedic, that is a physically demanding job with high levels of stress sometimes. Also, periods of time where you'll just be standing around with not much to do. Most of the time, though, it's a high-level, high-energy job that requires you to be on the go for the entire shift. It's a tough job. Not to be discouraging on that, you just got to be aware of those physical requirements and the stress level. Benefits and perks. Everybody wants to know, all right, here's my paycheck. What else am I getting? What about insurance? Do I get a company car? Do I get to travel with this job? And if so, where am I traveling to? Do I get reimbursed for expenses? What kind of office am I going to have? Will it have a window? There are all kinds of perks and benefits. On entry-level jobs, you don't usually think of those things. But when you're moving from profession to profession or when you're moving up the ladder, that's something to consider. Some jobs have great benefits and perks. Other jobs do not. You've got to be conscious of that. Opportunities for advancement. How far do you want to go? How fast do you want to get there? Leadership positions. Do they give you opportunities to rise in your profession? Or is it one of these professions that when you're in that profession, that's it? Some jobs you can really move. Some jobs you can pretty much stay where you want to be. Just depends. Reputation's big. You want to research and you can find a lot of information about particular companies. Some companies are great to work for. Some are not. There are magazines. Fortune comes to mind. They actually do annual reviews and they'll say these are the best companies to work for. That's good information. If you're willing to be more of a geographical mover and go somewhere else, you might be able to pick and choose companies based on what they're willing to do for you. Training requirements. When you get there, are they going to throw you in and sink or swim? Will there be training that will help you ease into your job? And then once you're there, will they help you continue to expand and grow in your job? And finally, the industry outlook. Some professions are increasing in numbers. Some are decreasing. And that is a constantly changing thing, especially with technology. You don't find a lot of people that are looking for locomotive repairmen that are steam locomotives because we don't have steam locomotives really anymore. It's not a big growing profession. But healthcare field, all kinds of things growing fast. Business profession, all kinds of fields growing fast. Education grows fast. You've got to research and look into it. Later on, I think maybe 3 or 4 sessions from now, we'll talk about how you can research professions and find out information. Some great websites out there especially. You always want to keep your options open. Volunteer if you can. Not every profession will allow that. But if you can volunteer in an organization that's related to what you're doing, I want to be a veterinarian. Volunteer at the pet shelter. You will gain more experience than you can imagine, and as a bonus, you'll find out if you really want to do that in the first place. You might get in there and spend a couple of weeks and you're like, okay, this is a bad idea. Or you might find out that you love it even more than you could ever possibly imagine. But volunteering will give you that basis. On-the-job training, internships, whenever you can get experience hands-on with what you're interested in doing, I always recommend that. And as I said before, talk to people that are doing what you think you want to do, because they have the experience. Now, word of advice. Be careful who you seek out. If they're bitter and hate their job, that's not a good source for you. And that happens sometimes. You want to find somebody that's energetic and interested in what they're doing, because those are the people that are going to help you see the good side of a job. It's not always a bad thing to find out the negatives, because you don't want to be surprised on that too. But it's good to have the knowledge, have the background, have the research. Finally, what are you looking for in a job? Because there is a balance. You know, I tell people, if you think about your day, you got 24 hours. Let's say you sleep for 8 and you work for 8. That just leaves another 8 hours. 2/3 of your day is either sleeping or working. Some jobs require more than 8 hours a day. Some require weekends. Some require holidays. Some of them have very limited time off, and some expensive amounts of time off. It just depends on what you're looking for. What hours are you willing to work? If you're like, I want 9 to 3, Monday through Tuesday, that's going to be hard to find. Your expectation, 40 hours a week. 8 to 5, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. That's pretty standard. But a lot of businesses will require you to work overtime. They'll require you to work weekends. They'll be looking for people who are flexible with their schedule. That's not easy for people sometimes to do, especially if you have family commitments. Travel time to and away from home. Commute times. If you want to work in a city and live in the suburbs, sometimes you've got to be willing to commute an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours to and from every day. That's a big commitment in time. To drive an hour to work for 8 or 9 hours, drive an hour home, you've just taken a big chunk out of your day. But that may be something that you have to do or something you're willing to do. Responsibilities can include, we need you to attend this particular event. We need you to volunteer. We need you to be the face of our company in the public. This doesn't pay anything. It just requires you to give up Saturdays every once in a while or go to a community event. Those are important things to companies. And they're going to have that expectation. You need to be aware of that. How much of that are you willing to do? That depends on you. And then the public profile. Some professions you don't walk away from. If you are a political person, you're in the political eye, that's a 24/7 job. If you're in healthcare, let's say you're a nurse. You're driving down the road, you see somebody in distress, I'm not on the clock right now. It doesn't matter. You have that skill, you've got to help. Some jobs require you to be busy 24/7. You're always on call, even when you're not officially on call. How much of that are you willing to accept? With technology today, it's more than ever. You got your smartphone in front of you, you're getting emails from work at 3 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. You're not at work anymore, but you're still getting emails on your smartphone. Hey, some businesses will expect that. Some will not. It just depends on you. Coming up next few weeks. Next week, Tuesday, same time, what can I do with my major? That's always a good question. I'm studying this. What am I going to do with it? Try to show you some resources you can use so you have a better idea of what you're going to do with your major. And hopefully help you to kind of zone in on something that's more to what you're interested in. A week after that, resume, cover, letter writing techniques. Big deal. There are more resources than ever. There are easy ways to do resumes, but you have to be careful because there are certain things that are expected. And a really good resume is a really great thing. A really bad resume can be a really bad thing. You can get jobs or not get jobs based on that initial impression. I'll try to help you with those things too. Later on, job search networking, preparing for going to a career fair, the interview itself, lots more. You can pick and choose. You can come to every one of those. You can skip around. It won't bother me one way or the other. But I appreciate you being here today. You tell me if you've got questions you want to ask. Great. I appreciate you being here. I've got business cards. I'd like to give you one. And if you want to call me, you've got questions about choosing a career, choosing your major, working on a resume, that's what I'm here for. My name is Cory Werkeiser. I'm the career representative here, and I will help you any way I can on those things. I appreciate you being here.